Close your eyes. It's 6 a.m. in Paris, 1889. Gas lamps flicker out as the sun rises over brand new boulevards. The air smells of fresh croissants, coal smoke, and horse manure. You hear the clatter of iron wheels on cobblestone, the hiss of steam engines, and somewhere in the distance, the clanging of construction on the world's most controversial tower. This is Paris in the 1800s, the city that invented the modern world. Welcome to our AI reconstruction of Paris in the 1800s, a century that transformed a medieval maze into the city of light. Using thousands of photographs, paintings, and historical records, we've brought this lost world back to life. If you enjoy time travel like this, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? In 1800, Paris was still a medieval city, narrow, dark, disease-ridden. Population 550,000 crammed into crumbling tenements. But by 1900, Paris had been torn apart and rebuilt. Wide boulevards replaced winding alleys, gas lights turned night into day. The population exploded to 2.7 million, and the city became the capital of art, fashion, science, and scandal. This was the century that gave us the Eiffel Tower, the Moulin Rouge, and the birth of modern life as we know it. But beneath the glittering cafés and electric lights, Paris in the 1800s was a city of extreme contrasts. And by the end of this video, we'll reveal the moment that defined this era forever. The unveiling of the Eiffel Tower in 1889, and the shadows already gathering that would plunge this golden age into the darkness of World War I. Let's start with the man who destroyed Paris to save it, Baron Georges Eugène Haussmann. In 1853, Napoleon III gave him an impossible task: modernize Paris. Haussmann's solution: demolish 12,000 buildings, evict 350,000 people, and carve wide boulevards straight through the medieval heart of the city. The old Paris, the Paris of Victor Hugo's Les Misérables, was erased almost overnight. Narrow alleys where revolutionaries once built barricades, gone. Ancient tenements where rats and cholera thrived, bulldozed. In their place, 85 miles of new boulevards, perfectly straight, lined with uniform Haussmann-style apartments, cream-colored stone, wrought iron balconies, mansard roofs. Critics called it vandalism. Haussmann called it progress, and he was right. The new boulevards weren't just beautiful, they were strategic, wide enough that army cannons could fire down them, preventing future revolutions. Brilliant, brutal, and it worked. So what was daily life actually like on these new boulevards? Let's take a walk through Paris on an afternoon in 1885. It's 3 p.m. on Boulevard des Italiens. The sidewalks are packed. Gentlemen in top hats and tailcoats, not because they're going to a wedding, but because that's just what men wore every single day. Women in elaborate gowns with bustles so large they could barely fit through doorways. Layers upon layers of silk, lace and velvet, even in summer. You didn't leave the house looking casual in 1885. The boulevard is alive with sound. The clip-clop of horses pulling fiacres, the Uber of the 1800s. Street vendors shouting marrons chauds, roasted chestnuts. The hiss of steam from a new invention, the street tramway. And everywhere the smell, fresh bread from boulangeries, roasting coffee from cafés, and yes, horse manure, lots of it. Paris had 80,000 horses, and they left behind 500 tons of manure every single day. The city employed an army of street sweepers, but they were fighting a losing battle. Now let's step inside one of these famous cafés. Café de la Paix, opened in 1862. Gilded mirrors, velvet banquettes, marble tables. This is where Émile Zola wrote his novels, where Oscar Wilde held court, where the rich and the bohemian mingled over tiny cups of impossibly strong coffee and glasses of absinthe, the green fairy, the drink that was said to drive you mad. But here's the thing, you didn't go to a cafe just to drink. You went to see and be seen, to read the 17 daily newspapers Paris had by 1890, to argue about art, politics, the Dreyfus affair. The café was the internet of the 1800s, where ideas spread, reputations were made, and revolutions were whispered. Now, if you wanted to see the absolute pinnacle of Paris's transformation, you went here. The Palais Garnier, the Paris Opera House. Completed in 1875, after 15 years of construction, this wasn't just a theatre, it was a temple to excess. The architect Charles Garnier was told by Empress Eugénie that the building had no discernible style. His response, "It's Napoleon III style, Your Majesty." Translation, "It's over the top and I don't care, let's step inside." The grand staircase, 30 meters of white marble, onyx balustrades, chandeliers dripping with crystals. You didn't just arrive at the opera, you made an entrance. Women in gowns worth a year's salary for a factory worker, men in white gloves and opera capes, everyone watching everyone else. The show started in the lobby, but the real magic happened in the auditorium. 2,000 seats upholstered in red velvet, a ceiling painted by Marc Chagall, though that came later, in 1964. In the 1800s, it was Jules Leneveu's classical frescoes, and hanging above it all, a 7-ton chandelier with 340 lights. In 1896, a counterweight from that chandelier fell and killed someone. That's the incident that inspired the Phantom of the Opera. The opera wasn't just entertainment. It was where society happened, where marriages were arranged in private boxes, where scandals were born, where the elite proved they were elite, and for one night even a clerk could scrape together enough francs to sit in the nosebleed seats and pretend. But not everyone spent their evenings at the opera. When the sun set, a very different Paris came alive. Montmartre, the red light district, the Bohemian quarter, the place your mother warned you about. And at its heart, the Moulin Rouge, opened in 1889, the same year as the Eiffel Tower. Its iconic red windmill, lit by electric lights, spun above a street packed with artists, prostitutes, aristocrats slumming it, and tourists looking for trouble. Inside, chaos. The can-can, a dance so scandalous it was basically illegal. Women kicking their legs above their heads, skirts flying, showing their bloomers. The crowd would go insane. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec sat in the corner, sketching it all. Absinthe on the table. His posters made the Moulin Rouge famous, and the Moulin Rouge made him famous. Symbiosis. But the Moulin Rouge wasn't the only game in town. There was Le Chat Noir, the Black Cat, a cabaret where poets performed, singers improvised, and everyone drank too much. There was the Folies Bergères, where Josephine Baker would later dance with a banana skirt. In the 1880s, it was known for its mirrors, an entire wall of them, so the audience could watch themselves watching the show. Meta before meta was a thing. And then there were the bals musettes, working-class dance halls, where factory workers danced the waltz until dawn. No velvet, no chandeliers, just sweat, cheap wine and accordions. This was the Paris the tourists didn't see, but it was just as real. And now, the moment that defined Paris in the 1800s, the moment we promised you at the start, May 6th, 1889, the Exposition Universelle, the World's Fair, opens in Paris. 32 million people will visit over the next 6 months. They come to see the future, electric lights, moving sidewalks, the first voice recordings, and towering over it all, the Eiffel Tower. Let's be clear, Parisians hated it. Before it was even finished, 300 artists signed a petition calling it a gigantic black smokestack that would disfigure Paris. Guy de Maupassant, the novelist, ate lunch in the Tower's restaurant every day. Why? Because it was the only place in Paris where he couldn't see the tower. But here's the thing, Gustave Eiffel didn't care. He'd built the tallest structure in the world, 300 meters, held together by 2.5 million rivets, assembled in just 2 years. It was supposed to be temporary. They were going to tear it down after 20 years. Obviously, that didn't happen. Imagine being there on opening day. You're standing at the base, looking up. Ironwork stretching into the sky like a metal spiderweb. You pay 1 franc a day's wages and you start to climb. 1,665 steps to the top. Your legs are burning, you're gasping for air, but you keep going because no human in history has ever been this high without a mountain. And then you reach the summit. You step out onto the platform and you see all of Paris spread below you. The Seine winding through the city, Notre Dame, Sacré-Cœur still under construction, the new boulevards like spokes of a wheel, the smoke from 1,000,000 coal stoves. The realization hits you, this is it. This is the moment the future arrives. So Paris in the 1890s was perfect, right? The Belle Époque, the beautiful era, they called it. And for some people it was. If you were rich, Paris was paradise. You summered in Deauville, you wintered on the Riviera. You spent your afternoons at the races at Longchamp, your evenings at the opera, your nights at the Moulin Rouge. You wore clothes you'd never wear again. You drank champagne like water. But if you were poor, Paris was hell. Let's talk about housing. Those beautiful Haussmann apartments, they were for the bourgeoisie. The working class lived in the outskirts, Belleville, Ménilmontant, in tenements that made medieval slums look quaint. Entire families in one room, no running water, toilets shared by 50 people. Tuberculosis everywhere. And the work, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. In factories, in sweatshops, in the sewers, women and children too. A seamstress might spend 14 hours a day stitching the gowns that aristocrats wore once. She'd earn barely enough for bread. The gap between rich and poor wasn't just visible, it was structural. The boulevards Haussmann built, they literally pushed the poor out of sight, out of the center, out of mind. By the 1900s, that tension was boiling. Strikes, anarchist bombings, protests. The Belle Époque was beautiful, yes, but it was rotting from the inside. And then the 1900s arrived. Paris hosted another World's Fair, the Exposition of 1900, even bigger than 1889. The metro opened. Art Nouveau was everywhere. The city felt unstoppable. But underneath, Europe was fracturing. Germany was rising. Alliances were forming. Nationalism was turning toxic. And in Paris, young men were being told that war was glorious, necessary, inevitable. In 1914, the Belle Époque ended overnight. World War I broke out. Those beautiful boulevards that Haussmann built, they saw parades of soldiers marching off to a war that was supposed to last 6 weeks. It lasted 4 years. 1.4 million Frenchmen died. The Paris of the 1800s, the Paris of gas lamps, can-can dancers, and impossible optimism was gone forever. So what's the legacy of Paris in the 1800s? It's the city we still see today. Walk through Paris now, and you're walking through Haussmann's vision. The boulevards, the apartments, the metro stations. It's all still there. But more than that, Paris in the 1800s invented the idea of the modern city. The idea that a city could be beautiful and functional. That public space mattered. That culture, art, music, food, ideas wasn't a luxury. It was the point. The 1800s gave us Impressionism, Pasteur's vaccines, the Lumiere brothers' first films, Curie's radioactivity, Debussy's music, Eiffel's engineering, Proust's novels. And the belief that ordinary people, not just kings and priests, deserved beauty in their lives. Paris in the 1800s wasn't perfect. It was deeply unequal. It could be cruel, but it was alive in a way few cities have ever been. And for a brief, shining moment before the wars, before the cynicism, Paris believed that the future was going to be better than the past. They were wrong, but God, what a beautiful dream. If this journey through time moved you, let us know in the comments. Which era and city should we resurrect next? Rome in its prime, Victorian London, New York in the 1920s. Your vote decides. And if you want to keep exploring lost worlds with us, hit that subscribe button. We're building a time machine, one video at a time. Thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the past.